our thinking as a team, cohesive thinking, innovative thinking that's really needed there. So if we see, why is that? Why do people start really behaving the way they behave? There's a great movie that if you've not seen, I would really encourage you to watch it. The name of the movie is Lord of the Flies, not Lord of the Rings, Lord of the Flies. Has anyone seen the movie here?
Read the book.
You read the book, William Goldstein, he got Nobel Prize not for the book but for some other thing. But it's a great story of about 24 British school children in the age group of 12 to 14 who are going in an aeroplane, and that aeroplane crashes into an island where there is no human life. The pilot is half dead and all the school children somehow miraculously survive. There is no defined leadership there, and what really happens is a story in next 2 hours that he talks about that explains how human groups self-evolve into forming groups, how factions are formed, how they start hating each other, how they start being violent to each other. And if you see, there's a lot of work that has been done by folks like Linda Rising talk about in the Agile community in a big way. There's a lot of work going on that all it takes, there's a beautiful study that was done the day, there's a lady of name Janet Evans, I hope that I get the name right. The day after JFK was assassinated in a small town in US, she decided to have a conversation with third graders. And she said, she wanted to sensitize essentially the white population in the US. Martin Luther King, the day after Martin Luther King assassination happened, she wanted to sensitize people about it. And she said, I'm going to tell you all, third grader, there's a video on YouTube so you can watch it, that all the blue-eyed children are better than the brown-eyed children. And she started the experiment with that. And she created a lot of punishments. So the brown-eyed children had to wear a collar around them, exactly like a dog collar, which actually was giving them a very humiliating feeling that I'm really inferior to somebody. Their lunch breaks were curtailed. Everything that they were actually entitled to was curtailed. Can you guess how much time it took for the blue-eyed children to really change their behavior? 15 minutes. Despite all our ethics and values and family systems and what have you, all it took for that teacher to really say all that stuff, and children started believing that and behaving exactly in the way that brown-eyed children were hopeless in 15 minutes flat. It's a different story. Next day she came and said, you know what, I was wrong, actually it's the brown-eyed people who are better. And the next day then she came and said, I was actually telling you that there is no such thing. Everybody is equal. So she was actually trying to drive a message home there. But one of the things that comes out of it from a human behavior point of view is that all it needs to do is draw a line here in the middle of it all and say, you guys are brown-eyed people, you guys are blue-eyed people, that's the way you should discriminate against others, and people start doing it. So watch that movie and you will really feel it, what I'm talking about. So some of these things are really becoming the barriers to innovation, and it's really a very self-inflicted, self-perpetuated injury, so to say, because most of the times these are not the things that our organizations have designed. Stuff like knowing the market, understanding the market, and using market information, we have it all available. Every single thing is available, but yet we fail to do that. And then in that process, if you really see, for example, the symptoms could be, it is the sales and marketing that should care about the market. Exactly like what we started out with, said innovation, somebody else sitting in that big corner cubicle is really responsible for that, right? Or we know what we have to do, so why should we change or listen? Many times we get into that sense of arrogancy. Well, I am the guy, I am the product manager, I know what is supposed to be done there, right? 100 years back, Henry Ford said, we know what people want. If we had asked people, they would have said faster horses. So there was no concept of customer research or market research or really going into that. I remember growing up in the late 80s, during the 80s time, before Hamara Bajaj ad started coming, Bajaj did not have a marketing department. I don't know if any of you are of that age to remember, but those days, Priya scooter used to have a 5-year waiting list, and if you got the allocation for that, you literally threw a party in your colony. Because then you were all set for life, you got a scooter, and that's it. India was yet to discover even Maruti those days, right? So we are talking about a very closed economy where people are saying, I am a vendor, I am a manufacturer, I don't even care what the customers are looking for. In fact, Henry Ford said, you can have any color of car as long as it is black. So the challenge then is how do you really go about innovating, because you are really shutting out on a lot of customer inputs and you are really creating those products in isolation. And there is no way to really check back and say, is that what customers are looking for, right? So how do we innovate? You don't have to tell the name of your company, but how do you go about innovating? What are the ways in which you innovate? Every answer is a right answer.
Identify the problem statement.
You identify the problem statement, what do you do after that? Or others can also time.
I read a very brilliant article about somebody who has done, who is in social entrepreneurship. His wife said about him, which captures, may give the answer. He said that my husband, whenever he gets to know anything, he wants to know everything about it, and then he wants to do something that nobody has done.
Okay. So it's knowing everything that others have not known and doing something that no one has done before.
So once you get to know anything, you
Yes.
get to know everything.
Fair enough. Yeah.
And then do something on it that nobody else has done.
Okay. So is that how we are able to do that? How do we really get? We have some ideas. We start with that. How do we do? What do we do next? We get into
Generally, innovation it comes from pain, 80-90%.
from a pain.
Yeah.
Okay.
And innovation is not objective. Innovation is mean to achieve some objective.
Fair enough. Okay.
We don't do, I want to innovate. It is not like that.
Okay. You don't get up and say, okay, I'm going to innovate something.
I want to
different.
achieve something. To achieve something, I do innovation. So
Right.
innovation is the measure, not
Right.
the ultimate goal.
True. True.
Just to add, innovation may not always come from the pain, but innovations come from the deficiency, which is either a self-created deficiency or the natural deficiency.
Okay.
So if it's a self-created deficiency, it's not a pain. It's somewhere I want to achieve.
Okay.
So innovations coming from of course we create a deficiency as that's a trigger for the innovation.
So how does that actually get when you get to the office and somebody says,
So
okay, we have
I
to
give an easy tip. You don't
Okay.
require to start anything.
Okay.
Just be curious and dream
Okay.
and imagine.
Okay.
Innovation will come to you.
So does it really come like this as you make it out to be?
No. Dream.
The story, but then this guy is like 5 pay levels above you. How many of us would venture out and say that yes, that's what it's going to be?
Yeah. Done as an engineer itself.
Right?
See you.
You have done that thing?
Yeah.
Great, congrats. How many of you would be willing to do that?
When I was an engineer, I said that this product cannot be released.
What happened after
And they
that?
said the GMs are saying will get fired. But I still said it cannot
Exactly,
go.
exactly.
When the CEO came and hugged him. That's
So
it.
that's really a great CEO. Yeah. I'll tell you another story. I'll tell you another thing. So you are in another setting, you are in another brainstorming, and the most, there's a term known for that. I think it's known as HIPPO. HIPPO is the highest income paid person opinion, right? So the guy who makes the most money in that room, that person's opinion, that is HIPPO. Have you been in a meeting where the HIPPO said, I think we should have this color of wall, and everybody, yes sir, I think that's the right thing. That's exactly what we need to do. Have you seen that? Have you been in that? You had your inner urge was to just go and strangle that guy for saying, come on, you don't even have the basics of design, and you are saying that this should be the color there. But many a times, psychologically, sometimes we become victims of group thinking. Group thinking is a phenomena where because somebody says so and you probably feel, okay, how can I really fall out of the group? I don't want to really fall out of the group, so you start falling into the group.
Maybe due to the peer pressure even.
Peer pressure is what's really happening there. So we start getting into a group think behavior.
Fear of being unique.
Fear of unique in a negative way, because what people are going to say, right? People are going to call you out. A lot of these dynamics really happen because of which brainstorming, when it came out in 58, I think Osborne wrote about it in a book. It has not really been the best mechanism, but it's the most popular. If you ask anybody, how do you get the ideas? We brainstorm. Everybody will say across the world that we brainstorm, and yet, if only we had brainstormed better, we would probably have better ideas there. So what people are realizing is that this is really so say work is boring, what's the alternative? The alternative is to play games. How many of you were children at some point in time? The point is, we were, as a children, what was the best thing that we liked about childhood? Fun, excitement.
No worries. Never care for failures.
Right?
Never caring for failures.
Never caring for failures. And what were we doing all the time when we were bombarded with all these inputs to us? We were learning.
And we were fearless.
We were fearless. We didn't have to worry about anything there. There was an innate joy in what we were doing there, right? So, but the moment we grew up, we forgot that, right? Because we are expected to behave like grown-ups, so we cannot be like children, right? And that's the problem that we have here. So I'm going to turn our biological and body clocks a little bit and see how can we play games in the office and do something better. So this is where the innovation games come. Innovation games is a registered trademark. It's a book of this name, Innovation Names. You can go to innovationgames.com and you can learn about that. A lot of stuff is on the website, but you can buy the book as well. It's actually a fun way to collaborate with customers to better understand their needs. That's it. There's nothing more to that. And we can actually close down this session right after this, because this is all you need to know here, right? But since Nitesh has called me, I need to do justice to that. I'll talk a little more about that. So this is the book actually that Luke wrote, I think in 2006-2007 time frame, in which he talked about how can we really bring this whole philosophy of gaming into the workplace to actually stimulate the whole idea of brainstorming and ideation and other things. How can you use it? You can use it in multiple ways. You can use it to create roadmaps. You can use it to improve sales and marketing effectiveness. You can improve customer relationship. It's a very generic way of doing things. You can use it for any kind of a problem. So let's see what it is all about. This is my take on what Innovation Games is, having studying that for some time now. The first element of Innovation Games is really the collaborative play. We as an individual, like I said, we create silos. I gave you the example of this movie, Lord of the Flies and other ones, and you will see how people really start. All you have to tell is, oh, you are different, right? You are from north, or you are from south, or you are not 8 feet tall like me, or you are not weighing 200 pounds like me, and people start segregating. We love doing that. We love really putting filters in our mind so that we can start differentiating. The first thing that Innovation Games does is really demolish those silos and says, how can we really come together? There's a beautiful book of name, The Medici Effect. Has anyone read that? It's a website by name, themedicieffect.com, or I think it's themedicigroup.com. So during the 16th century Italy, when Leonardo da Vinci and all the great people were in Italy, what people don't know is that how they were successful. So there was a banking family of name Medici. And Medici family was actually bankrolling all these scientific research of that time. And what they did, among other things, was they got people from varied fields actually, art, science, biology, medicine, this, that, and they got all of them, locked them up in a room and said, now go and innovate. I mean, they literally threw them together. So this author, Frank Johansson, of this book, The Medici Effect, he argues actually that the reason the Italy of 16th century was so productive from a scientific achievement point of view was because of what he calls as the Medici Effect, where people from cross-functional skills, they tore down the silos, they all came together, they cross-pollinated their ideas, they came together and they were able to create the kind of confluence of those ideas. So that's the way I look at Innovation Games, which actually tries to put everybody. For example, whose job is it to do the quality? In the traditional world, the quality engineer will say, my job. Whose job is it to do innovation? It's my job. Whose job is it to do market research? Maybe somebody from marketing team will come. Innovation says, game say, put all of them in the same room, everybody is an equal, and let's play the game. The second big thing, very different about Innovation Games, is co-creation. Whose job is it to create the products? In a changing world, all. Have you seen the Nike website where you can actually design your own shoes? You can actually say, okay, I want that neon stuff there, and I want those slick stickers there, and that kind of a thing. Or you can design your own jeans, for example. There are websites where you can go and say, I want that color, and I want that style, and I want that grain of denim, and so on. What's happening here? 100 years back, Henry Ford said, you can have any color of car as long as it is black. And today, we are willing to change. We are doing from mass production, we have come to what we call as mass customization. It is not a one-off customization we are talking about. We are talking about a mass customization. There was a time, many decades back, that publishing a book was the biggest thing, because you had to have a certain number of books, only then you could do that. So if you talk to the authors, there was a certain mechanism that you had to be really top guy before you could even get there, because nobody could afford to get 100,000 copies printed at the minimum. But with the whole reduction in the order quantity for the books, it has come to a point where if you go to, there is an Indian website also named Pothi.com. If you go to Pothi, you can self-publish your book. You can create your book, and then you go and put a calculator online and say, okay, I want this grain size, this paper thickness size. I'm looking at 100 pages. I'm looking at 5,000 copies of that. And I don't want to make any money out of that. It will say, okay, you have to still pay 30% to Pothi.com guys, because that's the service they are providing. And then you can decide your profit margin. You see what's happening? The whole process is getting disrupted, right? From what we initially thought that people had no stake in that, they are changing the whole process. So Innovation Games is also thinking on the same lines of thinking, how can we co-create? How can we involve customers in the process? And finally, it's a big believer in the whole power of visual thinking. I talk about visual thinking in a moment, but I don't know about you, I personally get put off the moment I see tons and tons of text going there. It's like eyes start rolling up and down. What's going to happen next, right? But a visual thing has probably much more appeal there. So let's go to the game part of that, and let's understand what is so game about it. What comes to your mind when you think of games? I'm going to talk about 4 traits of a game, but can anyone guess what they might be?
Fun.
Why is there a fun?
Because you enjoy.
Why do you enjoy?
Because you get what you want out of it.
Why do you get what you want?
Because you know what you want. In a way, you have to define your objective from up down.
You know what you want, but how are you guaranteed that others are going to give exactly what you want?
You will direct it, or somehow subconsciously perhaps the flow would be directed.
The last point is not so, I don't fully relate to that.
The
but we'll come to
formalized
that.
barrier is broken down. Actually,
How is it broken down?
everybody is going to play, right?
Why?
Because it's a game.
Why?
The ultimate purpose is fun. You make it competitive as well.
Okay.
There's something else for the
Outcome.
Okay, let's see what this author has to say about those 4 elements. The first thing is goal. There has to be a sense of purpose. What are we trying to do? Right? What is the goal? What is it that will keep the scoreboard kicking? What is the purpose? Is the purpose a draw? Is the purpose to win? There is another author who has written this book of name Finite and Infinite Games. And that author argues that there are 2 types of games, finite games and infinite games. The finite games are played with the purpose of winning, whereas the infinite games are played with the purpose of just having fun, keep extending that. There is no such thing there. Innovation game comes in the category of infinite games. The reason why I was trying to ask you, and don't get me wrong, was second one, rules. Everybody is you will get what you want only because everyone else is also going to give you what you want there. So we all have certain rules there. They unleash creativity and foster strategic thinking here. There is a feedback system. When the scoreboard is ticking and the timer is there, you know what's going to happen there. Oh, you are left with only 3 overs and you have to score 29 runs and you have only 1 wicket left. That is the mechanism of feedback to the players there. And finally, you have these common rules, the voluntary participation, which establishes common ground there. Now, one more thing about games. Try to think, let me try and paint that picture for you. Every game has boundaries of time and space. It has a start time, it has an end time, right? And we all voluntarily agree to impose certain set of rules. For example, in a common life, is there a rule that says that I cannot headbutt somebody in the office? There is no such rule. But if you are a football player, the rules are very clear. That you are not supposed to headbutt somebody, otherwise you will get a red card. Right? So the rules of the games are very clear, which actually is you start living a second life the moment you are playing a game. Because you have agreed to abide, the last point here, you have agreed to abide by certain common rules. The time is important because that time is the constraint that it gives you. During the time, now tell me one thing, in a cricket team or in a football team, who is the project leader, who is the QA manager, who is the dev lead, who is the program manager? or is it flat team? In reality, there might be people with 20 years of experience. There is Sachin Tendulkar and there is like Pujara here or somebody else there. Somebody was born the day Tendulkar hit the first century. I mean, like those kind of a things there. But the moment they are in the field, what are they? They are equals. The same rules apply for everybody. In a brainstorming session, when your boss says, I think that wall we should have pink color. Do we have the same rules there? I don't think we have the same rules there. But the moment you are in a play field, you have agreed to have a different set of rules which are common for everybody. What Innovation Games is trying to do is, it is trying to do the same activity with a different set of artificial rules that we are trying to impose upon ourselves. Now I'll ask you a question. You might say, why should we have rules? Can you think of games where there are no rules? Have you seen those WWF kind of a thing? They throw chairs and everything. It seems like they have no rules. It's an entertainment. It's not even a game actually, right? I mean, it's all staged thing. But if you really see there, if there is a game where it becomes free for all, does anyone remember? I think it was '85 when India hockey team in Asia Cup finals, they hit the Empire, and then India was banned. Indian hockey team was banned for 5 years after that because they went a free for all. They took out an Empire actually, the referee. The point I'm making is that if the rules are too tough, then the system will rebel. If the rules are too little, then it will break down. So it's not going to really help you with that. So these are some of the things that we are imposing with that. The second thing that this system is doing is it's helping you break down silos and get into a co-creation mode. Instead of having 5 people working in 5 different teams, it's getting them all together and saying, okay, how do we work together as a team? And finally, it's saying, moving from a literacy, which was one of the earliest skills, to the numeracy, we are actually going for the graphicacy. And graphicacy is all about how do we respond to the visual stimulus. So for example, if we look at how we look at the visual stimulus, how does the eye really send the messages to the brain? And I have a couple of data points here. What is basically happening is that our brain gets 90% of the stimulus from the visual sources. And that's the reason why we are so, the brain is actually 60,000 times faster processing the information that we are getting visually as opposed to the text. So with this backdrop, what this book has really talked about in the initial version is it has identified 12 innovation games. And these innovation games are really very simple exercises.